Alright, so this will be a series on working with discontinued parts. Okay, so right now what we have is just a Ford distributor. It's out of a V6 from the 70s and 80s. Now, when I got it, this was the unit that went around this. And so you can see what I've done to fix the vacuum leak. It's not entirely done, but I've got a little bit more to do. But what had happened must have been is this was all remanufactured. It's got remanufactured number on it. But when the customer got it, this vacuum diaphragm didn't work at all. They vacuum tested it and it wouldn't hold a vacuum. It wouldn't do anything. And so I think they cut this apart and fixed the vacuum, but it still didn't work. It still didn't hold. This is supposed to be kind of a wedge. What it does is that it actually pulls these two pieces together. There's a steel piece, aluminum piece, and then there's a rubber diaphragm that's inside there, similar to one of these diaphragms as well. And so unfortunately this diaphragm by itself is no longer available. It's a dual diaphragm, and inside here I was able to look at the inside diaphragm and it was not replaced, so it had a big tear in it, but it does have advance. So what I can show you is this. I'll use my little silver line. Under vacuum advance, as you're driving down the road, as you tip into the throttle just a little bit, you're going to get vacuum is going to occur in the carburation system or in the manifold, whichever it's hooked up to. This one, on this particular one, is called ported vacuum. That means as the butterfly is open, it creates more vacuum through these ports rather than less vacuum on the manifold. So when that does that, then what it does is it advances the timing so much, and you can actually adjust that out of it so you can get the timing advance that you want. Now we're holding 15 inches of vacuum, and watch this arm right here where my thumb is, and it moves. Now there's another thing too. Inside here there's an adjustment, and a lot of people don't know about that adjustment. That's what they call your overall vacuum advance. And so you've got three timing curves that you have to look at. You have your base timing, which is just where your timing is set inside the engine, and then your mechanical timing, which this one has weights down inside here, and they're pretty hard to see, but you can almost see there's a tiny hole right down in there, and like I say, it's hard to see, but there's a set of weights inside there, and as you speed the engine up, those weights fly apart, and as they do, they bring with it the changeover of timing between the shaft itself and this portion here. See, there's a, let's see if you can get it in the camera. I'm holding the bottom shaft tight, and at the top you can see there's spring-loaded bit in there, and what that is, that's those weights. So as it spins faster, it throws the weights out, and it needs to advance the timing so that the spark happens further down as the piston is before top dead center. So the piston's moving up and down. Every time it hits, it lights and it comes back down. It's kind of like a cannonball. The power stroke on any engine is like a cannonball. You've got a spark plug up here, and you've got your air and fuel mix, and as that spark plug lights, it shoots that piston downward. That's your power stroke. It's almost like a cannonball, except for the cannonball is now attached to the crankshaft, and it keeps doing it, and that's how you got a reciprocating engine or an internal combustion engine. And the faster the engine runs, the more timing it needs. Otherwise it starts to slow down, lose power. So you've got your mechanical advance, and then as it progresses a little bit more, it needs more vacuum advance. Now, on the newer cars, this is all computer controlled, and it does it by various bits of inputs and outputs, but it controls timing differently. But on this particular one, it was just this is called a vacuum advance, and there's a vacuum retard, which is no longer going to be used. I'll have to plug that hole. I'll probably just mix up a 2-part epoxy just to keep dirt from getting out in there. Some people will actually put a golf tee in there, break it off, and then just sand it flat. And this is the same type of a vacuum advance. This is a Ford right here, and this is an American Motors, and this is the closest I could come to getting a replacement vacuum advance that was available. However, the unfortunate thing is, if you look and see this arm, it's not only straight, it's a little bit shorter, and it's not bent. It would have bolted in fine, but unfortunately, when I tried to install this, the unit, instead of being below like this one is right here, it was actually on top, and it was straight. So the distributor cap mounts in right here, and it would have actually interfered with the distributor cap itself. So you've got to look at that whenever you're trying to do these types of repairs. You got to know what's going to happen, when you're going to get the advance that you need, and how it's going to occur, and will it stay alive long enough. Now, the unfortunate thing is it's got a pretty heavy duty spring in here, so it took quite an effort to get this together, and every time I put a screw in there, it would still leak a little bit, so I'd put another screw, and finally I ended up putting all those screws in it. A couple places it didn't leak, but a couple places it did. I've got one more screw to put in there. However, these heads are so big that it won't go in there and tighten down, so I'll have to fix that. That won't be a big deal. I think I can put some small washers in there, and that'll clamp that. Just that little tiny gap is all. You can kind of see that gap right there. And this is the things that you have to do when you are repairing vehicles and parts that are no longer available. This one's been discontinued for about 15 years. This one was still available, although they did have a short supply of them, which is from an American Motors, Jeep, and some others but remember, American Motors borrowed Motorcraft parts, and that is a Motorcraft. So they did borrow a lot of Motorcraft stuff on their American Motors Jeeps and various other items that they made. So that's just a quick little quick educational thing for you. If you run into a situation like that, it may take some modification to actually make it work. And for now, there's your another thumbs up.